Okay, we're rolling, Brett. We're inside the LC&M caboose with Brett, and he's going to talk about railroad history in his career here. Go ahead.
Okay, Rich. Well, it all started back when my great-great-grandfather, he got buried alive right here in Fort Henry under the trestle over there, unloading ore cars. And my great-grandfather was a conductor, switching cars down the south end of town there. He got his arm cut off, and they had to take him up to Mineville. They cut it the rest of the way off, and he walked the tracks here with a hammer. He'd go all the way up to Mullenbrook, have lunch, come back, and hitting high spikes on the rails. Then the next day he'd go all the way to Burdick's, and then come back up, have his lunch at Burdick's, and come back, and that was his day. They gave him a job. And then my grandfather, he died at 49 years old. He was a car inspector. My father had 44 years. He got transferred to Whitehall after they closed down here. And well, then I came on the railroad. I started out swinging a hammer 10 hours a day.
So, are you originally from Moriah?
Yeah, well, yes.
Okay. Born and raised here?
No, I was born in Albany.
Albany, okay.
Okay, when my mother had us, they had some problems, and I had to go to Albany Med to be born, and we lived here.
Okay.
And then years later, when I was working on the railroad, I became, I went a trackman, and then I became a flagman, trainman, then a conductor, and then about 15 years, I became a yardmaster, Saratoga. Then I came back up here, and after I was a regional manager in Saratoga, came back up here and went back to being a conductor and drove to Plattsburgh for another 17 years. And it's been in my blood all my life. And this caboose right here, I took over to the Greenwich and Johnsonville Railroad from Mechanicville, over through Eagle Bridge up onto the Washington branch and south of Salem. I told Mr. Skazababa where it was, and him and Mr. Ben went down and they got it. And they brought it here. Then the engine we got up here in the front, I brought that down from Plattsburgh. And they took it off the tracks right here and they moved it over with sidewinders and set it over here. And well, railroad's been in my blood for all my life. When I used to go up here to school, a Catholic school, I used to come down and with my father at noontime, we only went to school half a day. And then I'd be around all these railroaders here, and I really loved it. I loved it. My father had an oil can where he did the friction bearings on the cars, and he gave me a little oiler, and I had to do it too. So I got in trouble for saying what the stuff was inside it there by the nuns. But basically, this has been it was quite an experience. I had 39 years, and total years my father figured out. The total years we had, my father had 44. Yeah, total years, Thompson's had 167 years of service for the D&H. And we really enjoyed it. And this caboose here has got my uncle's name on it, John Sweet. He was the last conductor on the LC&M on it. So, and I was the last conductor on the D&H when I left it over there at the G&J Railroad there.
In this same car?
Pardon me?
In this same car, you were last conductor?
This caboose, I was a conductor. We had two cabooses, and I had put this on the hind end because it was a short wheelbase. And rode it over to Greenwich, and we dropped it off for that railroad over there. And I'm glad Mr. Skazababa went and got it.
So, you were born in this town. So, what did this railway service here? Was it all iron industry or what?
It was all iron ore. Yeah, it was. And then in the early '70s, it was it. And when I started after I got out of the Navy, and they watched the last of the trains that went up there to get scrap out of Switchback, and they rang it down and took it south to Whitehall, and then it was dispersed out. I think it went to Oneonta after that, all the parts.
So can you tell me about that stove sitting next to you?
Well, as a flagman on the railroad, you had to show up 15 minutes early, and this is the coal stove. And you had to make sure that that fire was going in there before that conductor, and this caboose had to be warm before that conductor got in here. And if it wasn't, you weren't a flagman anymore. They put you on the head end, they put you on the engine. And I went a lot of days. I come to work and it was cold, and I come out early. I come a half hour, 45 minutes early to make sure that that stove was going. You have to bank it when you leave it with the coal, and then and of course I had experience with coal because that's what we burnt in our house. And that stove right there is a heater. It's a heater. It's better than the ones they got today.
So what actually did the conductor do? I mean, he was back here behind at the tail end of the train in a warm car. What was his job?
He had all the orders. He had all the paperwork for work, and for the work we had to do along the way. What you do is you instruct your men. What you do is set cars off for industries and pick them up from industries, and he'd be out there making sure. Well, in later years, the conductor had to help because they cut a man from us. So the conductor would just stand on the caboose and he'd watch. He'd tell you what to do, and you did it. You better do it. I remember up there in Corinth, we had an old guy by the name of Bob Hewitt. Oh, he was an old miserable conductor, but he was a nice guy, but he was miserable. This one new kid went in the clay shed up there and at the IP mill and had clay all over his boots. Well, he just got done mopping his floor. That kid come walking through that caboose. Oh my, my, my. He made him stand outside. It was 30 below zero, all the way to Saratoga. And he wiped his feet before he come in after that. But I tell you, we had some conductors. They were old timers.
So did you have to spend many days in the car, or was it just short trips, or did you get overnighters and all that where you actually slept in there?
Well, I used to be on the job that came out of Saratoga, and it would go to Hawes Mines. And what we do is we get up to Hawes, and we'd get our trains and put the empties in, and we'll grab the loads, make a brake test, and head down over the hill, Stillwater Hill, over to Hudson, right into North Creek, and then we'd spend the night there in a motel. Now one time, it was snowing so bad that we had to stay in the caboose up at Hawes. It was cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't imagine it's too insulated in here.
No, but that stove right there, boy, kept it warm. I mean, you got 4 guys in here. It was tough.
So what did you do for meals in here? Did everybody just carry their own lunches, or what you have in here?
No, the conductor usually cooked.
Yeah.
You know, because he appreciated his men.
Yeah.
And they took care of him, by doing the work. And
So you cooked right on the stove. You had your bacon, eggs, and whatever.
Yeah, right on the stove. They had a little grill, and they put right on top of there, like a cast iron grill. Put it right on top of that stove. Boy, that cooked good.
Yeah.
That cooked good.
Nice. So tell me a little bit about the history of this car. Do you know anything more about it? Who built it? Where it was made? Whatever.
Well, I guess I don't know for a fact, but this is what I've heard, that the Republic Steel built this caboose, and they put it was all steel, And at the time, when I first started on the railroad, this was the only steel caboose that the railroad D&H had. They started making them in Oneonta, New York, steel ones, but we had wooden cabooses before this. And that's about all I know about it. But my Uncle Johnny used to, Johnny Sweet, he used to ride on this. And he used to tell me about it. But it was just, we had a lot of things in common because he was a conductor and I was a conductor, and he was in the Navy and I was in the Navy, so we knew what we were talking about. We're talking about the friction bearings on the car, and they have roller bearings now, which makes it a lot easier. And they'll have to have so many men for maintenance on the cars. But these have friction bearings here in this car. You open up you open up the boxes on the outside, and you had to check and make sure that the friction pad had oil on it, so it would lubricate the wheels or axles, and that's what the car inspector used to do. They used to do it over at all the trains. They used to do it here all the time. And they used to have a car inspector ride up on this train when they went up to the switchback to change brake shoes if they needed any brake shoes changed up there or anything. And my father, they got a runaway coming down around Wheelocks. I guess he jumped because they had to get up on the brakes of the cars and put the brakes on and the handbrakes on because air just wasn't holding them. So he had to jump. He broke his arm. I remember he was young then. I don't know, maybe about 2 or 3 years old, I guess, about that time.
So you had mentioned one of your